Welcome to the Lawless Astrology channel. My name is Dabney Lawless and I'm an evolutionary astrologer. Today we're going to be looking at the 2024 election and why women will cast the deciding votes. And it's a bit of a predictive video, but as you know, I am not a predictive astrologer. I am an evolutionary astrologer. So there's going to be a lot of discussion about historical trends, what's called mundane astrology, and I'm going to look at what I think is the energy around this day and what I think is coming. So if this is content you are interested in, I hope you stick around. And I always put the caveat in there that we do have free will. So that's why I don't predict things, because the truth of the matter is we do have free will and that is always changing. But do I believe that women are going to have a deciding voice in this election? Absolutely. And let's go dig into the astrology about why. So if you are a fan of Susan Lin, you may have heard me talk a little bit about why I believe that Kamala Harris will be the next president of the United States when it's all said and done. And so this is my reasoning and this is my presentation. Again, we have free will, and what that means is women are going to have to go to the polls. We're going to have to get motivated. We are going to have to drag people with us to vote in our best interest. And I'm looking at you white women who were not so helpful in 2016. So let's do this. Okay. Why women will decide this election. There are three things that I looked at: Chiron in Aries, Pluto in Aquarius, and Uranus and the United States chart's moon. Okay, I'm going to break down each of these things, but every single thing is kind of culminating in this energy where women are having so much of a say right now, and we are taking back our power. So let's look at, this is the election day chart. So what you will see is Chiron is at the exact degree on the election day as it was in the United States chart. So countries have charts as well. The United States is a Cancer chart, Cancer in the 7th house, like someone else we know, with Sagittarius rising, like someone else we know. So I really get the United States chart, let me tell you. So Chiron, wherever we have Chiron in our chart, is a place where we've been wounded, where we've been hurt when we were young, and we carry that pain with us throughout our lives. That pain never fully goes away, but as we mature and get older, we have gifts through the pain that we can then heal in ourselves and then heal with that energy and give back to other people. So for every single person, that's unique, what house it's in, what sign it's in. The United States has its Chiron in the 4th house in Aries. So an Aries Chiron has to do with feeling like you don't have a right to exist. So that is one of the original pains in the United States, is feeling like we don't even exist. I need to step into my power and feel like I have agency, I have autonomy, I have a right to independently exist from you. And so that really was kind of that birth of, we need to separate from the British, right? Like we were just kind of a tack on and giving all our money and power away to the British when we were the ones who were actually doing all the work. Additionally, we have to look at the fact that who wrote the Constitution, who wrote, 4th house is family, the United States family was written by white landed gentry, and it was all men. So women didn't get a voice. The additional thing is we did not take care of people of color either. So here is a core wound in the United States. And so for this presentation, we're really looking at women who were overlooked. And so every 50 years, you get a Chiron return. So that's the case for people as well. So when you come to be about 50 years old, you have your first Chiron return. Most people only see one Chiron return in their lifetime. And that is the time in which you kind of integrate everything that has transpired with this wound. And you start to say, I can't carry this anymore. This is no longer mine to carry. And you sort of transform it. And it's kind of like, I don't care anymore. Like you move past it. You kind of find your voice. And that's why a lot of women in their 50s start to really find their voice. And, or people in their 50s, I should say. It's a time of kind of declaring that you will no longer be beholden to whatever that core wound is. So then you can turn that into healing for other people. So every time the United States has a Chiron return, we have seen big advances for women, because women basically say, wait a second, I deserve equality too. I deserve to be here. I deserve a seat at the table. And so this is another one of those moments in time where Chiron is actually right at the same degree it was when the United States chart was born. Okay, so let's look at Chiron in Aries and gender equality throughout the United States history. So 1872, we have Victoria Woodhull, the very first woman who runs for president of the United States. She couldn't even vote, but she declared her presidency under the Equal Rights Party. So then, 50 years later, you have this kind of big flurry of things because so much had transpired. And in 1919, we have Woodrow Wilson, who was the president of the United States. We were just coming off of a pandemic, and Woodrow Wilson had a stroke. And his wife, Edith Wilson, in effect became the first president of the United States because she took over behind the scenes. It was kind of a really well-kept secret that throughout the rest of his presidency, she was running the show. So we've actually had a female president, but she was unacknowledged. In 1920, we got two women who were suffragettes, who were, really working to get women the vote. They each got one vote at the Democratic National Convention for president. Now, it was just symbolic because, again, at that point, they couldn't even vote. Then in 1920, fast forward a little bit, we have the 19th Amendment passes, which is a very big deal. And that only passed by one vote. And just a little bit of history, that was very much a tenuous situation where one of the people voting in the House of Representatives, I believe, his mother wrote him a letter and basically implored him to do the right thing. And he was the deciding vote. So I love that story. It's very interesting. So there is a bit of a stain here. It was only white women that were given the right to vote. So again, going back to all the core wounding of the United States. And so it does lay the groundwork for women of color to get the vote many years later. So, but I do want to acknowledge that this was only white women who got the vote in 1920, but it was still huge progress for women on the whole because it does set the stage for women across the country to get the vote. In 1922, the first suffragette or a suffragette becomes the first female senator. She was appointed, not elected, but that was very symbolic. It was our first female senator. And I believe she was 87 years old. So that's also like, she's kind of a badass. All right, 1923. The ERA was the Equal Rights Amendment, if you're not familiar with it. My guess is everybody watching this channel probably was all about it back in the day. And the ERA was introduced for the very first time for a vote, and it did not pass. Okay, well, let's fast forward a little bit more. 1969, we have Shirley Chisholm. Shirley Chisholm came onto the scene. And again, you see these 50 years increments where there's kind of flurries of activity that advances women. 1969, Shirley Chisholm becomes the first female and female of color to be a major party candidate in the primary. So she was a Democratic Party candidate, and she was a big advocate for the Equal Rights Amendment and civil rights, and she was just a very big powerhouse. In 1972, Title IX passes. Now, Title IX said that women and girls are entitled to equal education as boys and men. And so that is coming up now as a big talking point on the right about how Title IX is damaged goods because it allows transgender people to participate in sports. So there's all sorts of controversy, but you see this 50 years later, kind of things coming back around. In 1972, Katharine Graham was the first woman to become the CEO of a Fortune 500 company. And then a very big one in 1973, Roe v. Wade passes in the Supreme Court and becomes law of the land. So huge, huge deal that really frees women in a tremendous way. It really is an important move toward bodily autonomy and healthcare for women. Now we fast forward. One thing I did not put in here, and I should have, and so I just want to talk about it. So all throughout that, the ERA was gaining steam in the 70s. And then in the late 70s, after Chiron had already left Aries, we had the ERA kind of like, it came to a halt with the Christian nationalists and Phyllis Schlafly, and it was very heartbreaking for women. And that's why it's very important during Chiron and Aries to do the work for female equality, because there is kind of a moment in time in the United States where we actually can make progress. So in 2018, a bunch of women in Virginia really ramped up the ERA again, and Virginia became the 38th state to ratify the Equal Rights Amendment. So this is again under Chiron and Aries, and this is a very important thing because the bottom line is the Equal Rights Amendment, there is nothing stopping it from being adopted into the Constitution at this point. Even the rules that in the House that said that there was an expiration, that was changed in 2018. So it needs to be adopted in the Senate. So there needs to be political will, but I believe when Pluto goes into Aquarius, and we'll talk about that in a minute, I do believe the Equal Rights Amendment should be and will be adopted as law of the land. But back to the presentation, 2020, Kamala Harris becomes the first woman of color to become vice president. That's a big deal. It's something that we really didn't talk enough about at the time, but here we are. Throughout this presidency, she has been a heartbeat away from being the president of the United States. And she definitely was someone who broke a lot of glass ceilings to get there. Now, 2022, we have, again, this backlash where Roe was overturned. Not great, but this has galvanized women to come out to vote. We saw that when they took this away, I believe it was in Kansas, they put it on the states because they say, oh, it should go to the states. And then when they put it to the state, the women came out and said, yeah, we really want Roe. So hands off. So, even in very conservative areas, women have been mobilizing. And so that to me says that people are upset, women are angry. So here's some cautionary tale. So, in 1776, Abigail Adams writes to her husband, John Adams, urging him to remember the ladies in the new codes of law. All right, so if you look at this inner chart here, again, this is the United States Sibley chart. The outer chart is a year later, a little less than a year later, when they created a law that said women shall not be entitled to vote in the country. So they actually codified that. Prior to that, women were a part of the family, and it was kind of like the men were the ones making the decisions, but the women had a say. And it was sort of like they were voting on behalf of the family, not just voting on behalf of themselves as men. So, if we think about the founding of the United States was founded with Pluto in Capricorn. Very patriarchal sign. We have been having a Pluto return, which I've talked about in other videos. The Pluto return, anytime a country has a Pluto return, because Pluto takes 248 years to go around the zodiac. When you have a return, it's basically saying, where did things go wrong? And this is like any Pluto transit in our own life, but it's very pronounced for the collective, when it is a return, because individuals don't have Pluto returns. We have aspects to Pluto, and Pluto touches anything, it kind of breaks it down. And if something is wrong, it's going to expose what's wrong so you can then build back better. So it's kind of the archetype of the tower or the phoenix, like kind of everything has to fall apart in order for it to come back together in a healthier, progressive way. So when a country has a Pluto return, you tend to see what the country is made of, and it exposes all of the wounding and the flaws and the toxicity. In Capricorn, again, founded by landed gentry, capitalism, money, wealth inequality, hierarchies, abuse of power, things that have really come to the forefront in our collective consciousness since 2008, when Pluto first went into Capricorn. That was the banking industry, where we saw how deregulation caused people to, get these really bad loans, and then people lost their homes. And unfortunately, people suffered. The banks did not. That was the whole too big to fail, right? So we also have seen the advent of, corruption in the Supreme Court. We've seen billionaires, like people, homelessness. At the same time, we have tremendous wealth, right? So these are all Pluto and Capricorn themes, where it's kind of like what has not been working for the country, and hierarchies and extreme patriarchy. These are all things that have been exposed, the Me Too movement, right? So anyway, that's a whole other video, but I do want to say that the United States was founded with Pluto and Capricorn. And so we have been having to examine all of that, and it's been in our faces, and it's been very stressful, right? This election is incredibly stressful. Now, let's look at what's happening now. During this chart, you can see there is a Chiron return. Though actually, it's not a Chiron return. Chiron's still at the same degree it was when the Constitution was signed. And we have Pluto just at 0 Aquarius. So a year later, Pluto had just gone into Aquarius when they had this law that had been in the works signed. So the reason I bring all this up is, ladies, we have to vote. We have to drag everyone with us to vote. It is so important, because this is our time, because under Pluto and Capricorn, things are taken away from us. Plans are set in motion to take away our rights, because the people in power want to hold on to the power very desperately. So we have an opportunity here with this Chiron in Aries and Pluto moving into Aquarius. What does Pluto and Aquarius mean? It means that democracy, revolution, and equality are all on their way. These are all themes of Pluto and Aquarius throughout history. The American Revolution and the French Revolution both took place in Pluto and Aquarius. The Age of Enlightenment, Pluto and Aquarius. The Industrial Revolution, Pluto and Aquarius. The dismantling of social hierarchies. This is a big one. So we see, kings beheaded, this is, and Uranus and Algol still in action here. Technological advances and the reevaluation of labor and labor practices. So these are all themes of Pluto and Aquarius. What this tells me, if I'm trying to make a prediction about this election, is that we are trying to turn a page. We have to be forward thinking. We have to be in the future. So what are Kamala Harris's slogans? Freedom, we won't go back, let's turn the page, power to the people. These are all Pluto and Aquarian themes. What is Pluto and Capricorn? Make America great again. So the election is happening on the 29th degree of Pluto and Capricorn, meaning that it is crumbling, it is falling apart, it's starting to lose its shine. It is kind of the finale, the grand finale of Pluto and Capricorn. And then literally like a week or two later, because it's November 19th, Pluto goes into Aquarius, and it's there for the next 20 years. So we are ready to turn the page. And I do believe that that's going to be led by people that are seeking equality. Now, do I also believe that there's a theme of revolution bubbling up underneath? Absolutely. And I think that's part of the stress that we all feel. But I do believe that the themes here are that democracy will prevail because Pluto is entering Aquarius. So I'll go more into Pluto and Aquarius in another video, but I just wanted to give you those themes. Okay, this isn't the inauguration day chart. And so I know that a lot of you out there don't love like all the charts. And so I will go through this quickly, but I did want to show you that we still have Chiron in Aries, pretty close. And this is what I like is Pluto's at first 1 degree of Aquarius. Okay, so that tells me it's 4 degrees off of the United States, Pluto and Capricorn. This tells me that the page has been turned by inauguration day. We are firmly into Aquarius and out of our Pluto return. We may still be feeling vibrations and like cleaning up messes and things like that, but this tells me that we have a very good shot of having our very first female president sworn in on inauguration day. And it's also just coincidentally Martin Luther King Jr. Day, which is kind of cool, but that's for another presentation as well. But that is something that I wanted to highlight here. Also, Mars will still be in Cancer at that point, and it will be on the United States Mercury. And Cancer is a feminine, this is the symbol of feminine energy. It's the mother and the protectress. And so Mars in Cancer is kind of like a warrior mama, and she's going to be, you know, speaking to the United States. So that's what I see. So hope I'm right. Okay. Another thing I just wanted to touch on, because this is really cool. There was an astrologer that I was watching. His name is Dan Waits. He's from the UK, and he's the one who originally called this out. And then I kind of did a little further research because I thought it was so cool. The role of Uranus and the advancement of equality is very well known, but the role of Uranus in the advancement of equality of women, when it makes a hard aspect to the United States chart, is not so well known. And that's really something that is evident. So we look, I was kind of thinking when I was doing my research for this, I was thinking, what are the big milestones of women's advancement in the United States? And in addition to the things that, you know, I listed with the Chiron and Aries, 2 other things that really were not accounted for were the Rosie the Riveter movement during World War II, where women for the first time entered the workforce en masse. And then in 1961, when the pill got FDA approval. So you are basically the birth control pill in general. So in 1941, I'm going to look at the charts here, the bombing of Pearl Harbor. What we see is that Uranus was at 27 degrees of Taurus, making a square to Pluto in, making a square, to the moon in Aquarius. Okay, so what's that about? So the moon in any country's chart is the people. It is also the way their women are treated. So here we have Uranus, which is the planet of change and lightning strikes and, you know, forward momentum and future and things that, you know, have to get shaken up, like a snow globe, you know, gets shaken up. So Uranus at 27 degrees of Taurus was making a square and saying it needs to change. It's time for the role of women to change. And so part of this bombing of the Pearl Harbor in the United States chart really kind of says that there's an opportunity. Here's my kitty cat saying hi. There's an opportunity now for women to find a degree of freedom from the home, and they can learn how to get new skills and they can get into the workforce. And so that was a big, big advancement. Okay. The next one was the birth control pill use. So it got approval in 1961. By 1962, millions of women were using birth control pills. So here again, we have Uranus 26 degrees of Leo opposing the United States 27-degree Aquarian moon. So it's an opposition this time, not a square, but still a hard aspect. And that represented liberation for women on a whole new level. And again, liberation from them. You know, there were a lot of really painful laws that said that women, you know, if they had children in preschool, they couldn't really have a job. I mean, there was a lot of things out there that people don't know about that prohibited women from living their fullest life, especially coming off of the 1950s, where there was really kind of this very conservative movement to keep women in the home. This was very revolutionary, and it just kind of catapulted women, and it changed social dynamics in the country forever. So, okay. I want to go back to something really quickly, is that let's go back to the Inauguration Day chart, and you will see once again we have Uranus squaring this this moon. So, and it's also election day, it is as well. So this is the kind of this interesting culmination of all the things that I've just been talking about are happening now. Chiron is in Aries. The United States is going through an exact Chiron return. Pluto in Aquarius is coming on November 19th for the next 20 years, where freedom and democracy reigns. And Uranus and the moon, hard aspects, are happening now. So all of this leads me to believe that we are in a time where we are going to see big advancements for women. And I think there's no bigger advancement for us than having Kamala Harris become our next president of the United States. So just one last Chiron and Aries thing. As I am recording this today in my suffragette white with my Kamala Harris, I'll stop sharing at this point, t-shirt for 2024. Last thing I want to say is today is the 50th anniversary of when women could get credit cards on their own. And for any younger viewers out there who may not know this, that's really incredible. But women couldn't get credit cards or a bank account without their husbands co-signing for it. So that is a 50-year advancement that, you know, we kind of forget sometimes how far we've come. So vote, vote, vote. Don't forget to vote. Vote early. Don't leave anything to chance this year, because this is a really important one, especially for us women. And I just want to thank everybody that supports my channel. I know that I'm going to get a lot of hateful comments, and I'm going to get a lot of people saying that I'm biased. I am actually wearing my Kamala Harris 2024 shirt to show my bias, because I am not a moron. And the bottom line is, like, I have experienced the toxicity that everyone else in this country has experienced. And I am here to encourage everybody to vote and to talk to people that may be on the fence. This is kind of my public service, and I'm going to put up with a lot of hate. So support me if you can. Share with people that you think will be supportive, and also, throw some blue hearts down below. You know, give me comments, give me likes, subscribe to this channel. This is all real astrology. None of it's made up, despite my bias. So I just want you to know that I cannot predict the future. I cannot promise that Kamala Harris will win. So this is what I think will happen. This is what I know can happen. And I do see that women are coming out in larger percentages currently to vote. So let's hope that that continues, because I think that this is ours to lose as women. And thank you. Know that I appreciate all the support and love. And we'll get through this time together, because I know it's stressful. There is a reason and a season for it all, and the universe is conspiring to help you. So until next time, stargazers, meditate, breathe, vote, tell other people to vote, and just take care of yourselves, because I know it's not an easy time. All right, take care.